My name is Manoli from Your AMZ. Our team has helped over 50 multi-million dollar brands scale on Amazon. And in this video, I sit down with our founder and CEO, Petros, to talk about how to build a roadmap for your marketing strategy on Amazon. So in the last video, which I'll link here on the top right, we talked about how to think about and choose a marketing strategy at an account level for your Amazon business. And we talked about the growth versus profit spectrum. So are you on the left side, growth at all costs, not looking at profit margin at all? Are you on the right side where we want to maximize profit dollars and profit margin? Or like most brands, are you somewhere in the middle looking for balanced strategy? That video walks through how to think about choosing a strategy. And in this video, Petros is going to talk to us about how do we build a roadmap at a product level to actually achieve that marketing strategy goal and those targets. So I hope you like the video. If you have any questions or comments, just drop a comment below. And if you get value from this video, please give it a thumbs up.
Awesome, let's get started. So how do we choose a marketing strategy for selling on Amazon? On this video, we're going to talk about how we begin to build a roadmap on our marketing strategy for a brand on Amazon. So we talked yesterday, the first step is to understand your overall business strategy or overall business goal. You're going to fall somewhere on this spectrum. We call it the growth versus profit spectrum. So you might be very focused on growth, don't care if you lose money. You're going to be on the left side of this spectrum. You could be the other extreme where all you care about is profit, and you want to make the most dollars possible in contribution margin. And then in between these two extremes, you could fall anywhere on the spectrum. Typically, we don't see anyone on these extremes. Almost everybody falls somewhere here in the middle. But you could be growth focused and balanced, like somewhere in the middle. You could be perfectly in the middle. You could be in between balanced and profit. So, once you understand exactly where your overall business goal is, now you can move on to actually building a roadmap for an Amazon marketing strategy. So if you stay at that business level goal, here's an example of how we would tackle this. So let's say this example brand, they have a business level goal somewhere in the middle of balanced and profit focused. This brand knows that their non-marketing costs are 50% of their revenue. So non-marketing costs are things like cost of goods sold, cost to fulfill the orders, fees like credit card fees, things like that, refunds, things like storage or importing costs, anything that goes into selling that product that is not marketing focused. You should be able to find this number looking at your historical data. If you're a company that's been around a while, you probably have a pretty good idea of what your non-marketing costs are as a percentage of your revenue. The next step here is to think about your business level goal and communicate and sort of translate that into a contribution margin target. So we usually guide our clients through this phase. They have a pretty good idea of what they want. So in this case, at 50% non-marketing costs and a goal of between balanced and profit, we chose a contribution margin target of 25% of total sales. So this is like your profit margin before, you add overhead and those kind of costs. This is the contribution margin that we use to analyze, the success of our, work with our clients. Whatever's left over out of 100% from your non-marketing cost and your target contribution margin, that's going to be your room for marketing spend. And what falls in marketing spend are things like advertising spend, promotions, anything where you're spending money to get sales, that counts as marketing cost. So, in this case, your contribution margin and your marketing spend are taking sort of all of the share of the profit that isn't taken up by the cost that cannot be, changed per order. So this is a simplified way of looking at it, but this is a really good place to start. So think about your business level goal as sort of your compass of the direction that you want to head. East, west, north, south. This is going to point you in the right direction when you're building a roadmap. However, it's really just the first step. Now we have to take the business level goal and have that guide our product level marketing strategies. But before we do that, we want to think about a concept called product life cycle. So when we're looking at a product within our catalog or our portfolio, it's going to fall in one of these 5 categories, starting with launch phase, hasn't had any sales yet, introduction, just getting out of that launch phase, being introduced to the market. This product, a product in this stage is probably losing money still. You're really investing in it to grow awareness of that product, get initial reviews. So you're not really focused on profit at that stage, but you are focused on growing that product quickly. These next three stages, these are the stages that your product is going to live in for the longest period of time. Out of these three, first comes growth. So, the early adopters have found your product, have bought it, but the overall market, the mainstream market has not found your product yet. So in this stage, you're still spending quite a lot of money to acquire new customers. Your marketing spend as a percentage of your total revenue is going to be higher than these other two categories, but that's okay because there is an opportunity for growth ahead of you. Once you peak in sales and you sort of maximize that opportunity, now you're in that maturity phase. You've reached your peak market share is maybe another way to look at it. So you're no longer, gaining at the same rate as you were, and you're actually maybe starting to fall a little bit, but you're not spending quite as much money to acquire new customers. At this point, the mainstream section of your market has discovered your product. You may have repeat buyers. You may be, getting some word of mouth. At this point, your cost of acquisition goes down and your profitability increases pretty dramatically. So once your product's in this maturity stage, you're making profitable contribution margin. It's just a question of how much profit do you want. And then when you're in this decline phase, you don't really have a lot of leeway on what to do. This product has gone past its peak sales. It's kind of end of life on the way out. You should be spending very little money as far as marketing at this point. You should have very high contribution margin, very high profitability.
How long is this? It says time on the bottom. Like, is this years long? Is this decades long?
I think it really depends on the category and also on how strong that brand is. So you have some categories where they have very short product life cycles. Technology is a really good example of this. So this whole cycle might only last a year or 2 years. Think of an iPhone. On the other hand, think of a consumer product that's been around for a long time, Coca-Cola, Pepsi. They're still not in this decline phase. They're still kind of in this, fighting for market share maturity phase with each other, and they may never go into this decline phase. So it really just depends on your market specifically, on how long the time is. But the majority of the time, let's say like 90% plus, is going to be growth, maturity, decline. Launch, introduction, that's a very short portion of that product life cycle.
And then when you mentioned launch, you said this is, for new products that are being introduced to the market. If a brand has a product on their website and they're bringing it to Amazon as a new product to that platform, would that be considered a launch phase product on Amazon?
In some ways, it would be, just because of the review scores would be really low. So a lot of the things that we do during launch phase, we would have to do, with a product coming to Amazon that's already on the market. But at the same time, your cost of acquisition should be lower than a normal launch product. So you'll be skipping some of the steps of a launch process, but not quite all of them. And if it's really a well-known product, like, you may be able to completely skip into this like growth phase. That's pretty rare, but we have seen that in the past. So taking these two ideas together, we can now kind of continue building our roadmap at the product level. So this is product one, just an example product. Remember our business level goal, balanced to profit focused. As an example, this product's product life cycle stage is maturity. So we're at our peak sales, so our profit should be pretty healthy in this case. Because we're leaning towards the profit focus, we're choosing here a contribution margin of 25% with the cost that we know for this product of 50%, and the 50% is going to stay the same for simplicity. They aren't always the same, for every product, obviously. But for simplicity, it's going to be 50% for all the examples here. But in this case, a decent target here at the product level for these circumstances is 25%, which leaves us a marketing spend target of about 25%. So still, you're investing in this product. You're trying to maintain your market share, your peak sales number, and maybe try to grow, gradually or very, very little month to month. But you are extracting quite a lot of profit at the same time. Let's say the same company with the same business level goal has a second product, and this product is in the growth life cycle stage. You can see here how they change between the two, going back to mature versus growth. Our contribution margin shrunk from 25 to 10, and our marketing spend target has grown from 25 to 40. So you can see here a sizable investment in order to grow this product. However, we're still above break even. So you're still making profit. If this was just a strictly balanced business level goal, I may see a 0% contribution margin here. If it's a growth, trending business level goal, you could see a negative contribution margin. So that's how those things shift at the business level. And then looking at a product maybe in the same portfolio, but in that decline phase, it's already well past its peak sales. You kind of see these numbers switch, where now you have 40% contribution margin versus 10% marketing spend. So you can see the difference here between the three different products with the same cost structure, but very different investments as far as marketing spend. And then when you put this together on one roadmap, which I will live fix, you can see how these three products, drive the results at the business goal, as the business level goal. So you can see here three different products, three different ad spend targets, all leading to, our overall business level target of 25%. And I even added an extra row here, percent of total revenue, just so this math actually will add up. So you'll see like 40% of your contribution margin for 40% of your revenue. This is all weighted average that actually does add up to 25%. So this is actually a pretty realistic scenario that we see in the world. I just want to compare it to one more example. So I'm going to show you the same structure of a roadmap, but this business level goal is going to change to profit focused. So this is a company that is going to invest, instead of investing 25% of their revenue into marketing spend, are actually only going to invest 14% because their business level goal changed and their contribution margin target has increased. Their marketing spend has dropped. So a company like this is much more focused on extracting as many dollars of contribution margin as their main priority, and not necessarily growth rate or grabbing as much market share as possible. So what kind of company would have this strategy compared to this? So, let's say your company has been around a while and you're maybe reaching retirement age and you want to sell it. That company is very focused on showing as much profit margin as possible so that they can get the highest multiple on that profit when they go to sell their company. But if you're trying to build a company that is going to last the next 20, 30, 40 years, and you want to be a part of that growth, you want to invest in that marketing while still taking some money out, maybe to further invest in your business or even pay yourself a little extra. You're still investing in that growth and still able to, make a decent amount of profit. So, just two different scenarios. Could be the same company, but two different owners might have two different, ideas of, what kind of company they want to run. So that's why it's like really important to spend some time here at the beginning to understand your business level goal, what kind of company you want to have. And then that's going to really drive your product level goals, which are going to combine to add up to your targets here. Any questions?
Yeah, just this is awesome, but also, it's sort of an inexact science, right? Percentage of total revenue, 40, 20, 40.
Yeah,
So I'm sure this is an iterative process as you're looking at
for sure.
the ad data, the sales data. You're maybe making tweaks along the way to make sure you're hitting that account level contribution margin target.
Absolutely. Yeah, so keep in mind, like I'm looking at this as if this is a brand new account that we just signed up with. So, at this point, we're just trying to build the map. So I've compared this to a compass, this growth versus profit decision. This is the direction, this is the kind of company we want to have. When you're at this product level, now you're getting closer. Like you can't pinpoint exactly where you're going, but like maybe the city you're going to and you could start driving there. And by the time you get there, like you're going to figure out exactly, where you're going. So it is an iterative process. That's a really good question. This is really, we're just really honing in on what we're trying to achieve and then the general location of where we're trying to get to. And then as we get more information, as we get more comfortable with the relationship with our client, as we learn more about their products, their brands, we can really get specific with our intentions. And then those tactics start to be really powerful. But we'll get into that on a future call.
Awesome. Yeah. And if you missed the first video we just recorded and uploaded, it talks about choosing an account level goal. So, how do you choose between growth focused, balanced, or profit focused? We'll add that video to the top right of the screen here.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Petros.